Hey guys, Full Circle Garage here. I got a special guest, a truly crazy story how me and him met, but this is Andrew Duncan and his garage.
Man, I'm happy to be here. It's truly a crazy story how almost hired you to do a bunch of work at the house, and like you're like, I think, what was it? Did I have I think I had a Skyline shirt on.
It was a Nismo shirt.
It was a Nismo shirt, yeah. And you're like, Nismo, like, and I think you probably just thought like, this guy's probably not a Nismo guy, right? And then you're like, and then I'm like, oh, you got to see my garage.
Yeah. So here's how this kind of happened. I think everybody knows I own a landscape design and build company, and he contacted me. This is right after I had aired on HGTV. And we set a consultation.
Yep.
I come up here. You know, we do our normal walk around. We're talking, kind of finding out wants and needs and all this stuff. And I'm getting ready to head out the door. And the whole time we're talking, I'm like looking at your Nismo shirt. I'm like, nah, he's not a JDM guy.
Yeah.
Like,
it's funny.
And so I remember like being at your door, and I was like, Nismo.
And he was like,
dude,
you gotta see my garage.
Yeah, like literally, I remember exactly how it went. I'll never forget, because we'll get into it, but this changed my life, guys. It truly changed my life. And I looked at it, I said, Nismo, and he said, yeah. And then you looked at your wife at the time, and you're just like, come check out my garage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So like we walked downstairs and stuff, and I'm like, oh my God. Like,
it's like,
oh, dude,
well, it was funny because like at the time, my ex and I disagreed about like letting people see like certain parts of our life, right? And I'm different than that, and I felt like it could be more inspiring, which is why like my cars are all over my social media now. Back then they weren't. And so when the house was built, the idea was the garage was kind of going to be like my cave, and I was going to, decorate it the way I wanted, and I was going to, put the cars in it that I wanted. And at the time, I had my black GTR, which is a 1,400 horsepower GTR. I had my orange Supra. I had, I'm trying to remember what else I had at the time. I think those were probably the main two. I had an M6 BMW.
You did, yeah.
I had
a G-Wagon?
I had a G-Wagon. I had my Lightning truck.
Which
is still here. So I didn't have all the stuff that I have now, but I definitely had some of it. But I think it was the Fast and Furious design of the garage that was probably the other part that kind of got your attention. So.
Yeah, because I think I can't remember. No, maybe I came in over that.
Yeah, we were on that side. Yeah.
And we'll end up touring the garage, but literally decked out Fast and Furious. And then you tell me you have the mechanic toolbox.
Yeah, the toolbox from the first movie. Yeah, I bought it from Craig Lieberman, signed by Paul Walker. It's the toolbox from when they brought the Supra in for them to rebuild and basically make a 10-second car for Toretto. So
dude,
it's pretty cool.
That's so killer.
But yeah, and that's kind of how we connected on the car stuff, because at the time, like, I didn't have it on social media. No one knew what I had, and I was very private about it. And I've obviously now been a little bit more public and shared, more of my collection and kind of some of the cool stuff in my garage. And I showed off in some of my own videos in my company. But back then I wasn't. So you were just like, whoa,
dude,
pretty wow factor.
I was blown away. So, I ended up touring this garage and looking at it, and I'm just, you got to imagine. First of all, I don't have a car at the time. Like no car.
This was, what was it, 19 or 20 maybe?
This is 19.
2019.
Yeah, I just
because the house was built, I moved in like the first part of 19. So that lines up. Yeah. Because that's when we were looking at basically doing a bunch of landscape design on all because I own all the property around. Yeah. So I was going to do some sort of cool thing, and obviously those plans didn't come to fruition, but that was the idea at the time, which is how we kind of got connected. So
and so I'm looking at it, I'm blown away. This is all this Fast and Furious and all this stuff. And
all the JDM cars that you've now since gone out and now built your own collection.
Yeah. And so I'll never forget, to this day, I still drive this truck. I have like 250,000 mile old white Tundra. I still drive it to this day. Zip around properties, all this stuff. And I'll never forget, man, once we got done in here, I got in my vehicle, and I literally got on the phone and I called my cousin right away.
That's awesome.
And I literally said, you're not going to believe this, man. I said, this guy has this like Fast and Furious collections, like GTR, Supra, like he has like the toolbox from the actual movie. And he's just like, what? And I'm like, and I said, dude, man, and I'm driving. I'm like, why not me?
Yeah.
That's literally what I can't say. I don't understand. I'm busting my ass. Like, why not me? You know what I mean? And I truly, when I say this, I left here inspired.
Man, that makes me feel so awesome.
Bro.
Because it's like, one of the tough parts is like when you succeed in life and you start like, you know, accomplishing dreams that you have, or buying like dream cars, or building a dream house. Like, you know, you struggle sometimes with this idea about like, hey, if I show this off, am I going to get hate? You know, am I going to have people like not like it? And so there's this balancing act between like, you know, not wanting to be like, still wanting to be humble, but also wanting to inspire, and like the balancing act between like not wanting to look like a show off and, you know, rub what you have in people's face, but also say, hey, look, this is possible for you, you know?
That was the thing. It's just knowing it was actually possible.
Yeah.
And that's probably a lot of the DMs and comments I get. They're like, you're showing me, because you started a lawn care company.
Yeah.
This is nothing innovative or anything. You started a lawn care company, and you're showing it's possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think we share a similar upbringing in that, you know, I was definitely not the silver spoon kid.
Yeah.
My mom was a waitress. My dad was a factory worker. I grew up in a small town in Indiana, Martinsville, Indiana, in the middle of nowhere, right? And so, you know, went to college, and then after college moved here, worked in a sales job for a few years before I got into real estate. And then in real estate, I started figuring it out and doing well after doing it for a few years. And so, but it certainly didn't happen easy. It didn't happen overnight. And I think I probably I'm 20 years in real estate now. I've spent almost the first 10 years living way below my means so that I could just keep pouring into the business. So eventually I could get to a point where I could say, you know what, I want to buy that car.
Yeah.
You know, or hey, I want to go on that trip, or being able to like really kind of buy your time and your freedom. And so, but I spent that 10-year period kind of, you know, in the hard knocks, you know, making the mistakes and messing up, and, you know, and probably, you know, spent more money doing dumb stuff that I thought would work, to where eventually I figured stuff out that did. And then you kind of get a routine where you've got a system, and it took a while. And so now, obviously, I'm in that place now where I can impact a lot of people, where I can help a lot of people, where I can grow my business, and then have the ability to kind of do things that I wanted to do as a kid, you know, that I looked at as like, it's a dream someday to have that car. You know?
Yeah, that was kind of, you know, same with me, man, is I've been in business about 17 years now.
Yep.
And, you know, the cars in the garage and all this stuff ended up happening about 2 years ago. It really, you know,
so it took 15 to really, like, when people will be like, hey, Jared, you're an overnight success. You know? It's like, no, I was not. Like, you have no idea. Like, and I remember, so like my first couple years in real estate too, it was like, it was always a means to an end for me. Like, there was always the stuff that I was doing, I knew would eventually pay off. The 70, 80-hour work weeks, you know, all the stuff that you do when you're building the business, the risk you take, the money you pour into marketing, all these types of things. And I remember the first couple of years, I was barely treading water as an agent. In fact, I was going to Best Buy in the morning and buying anytime they would get Nintendo Wiis, and I was flipping them on Craigslist and eBay. I was literally doing all these little because you didn't have Uber back then, so I was doing all these side hustles to give me enough money to pay the bills. Yeah. And I even got roommates my first years in real estate, because it was before I met my ex, and I had roommates literally to help pay the bills so that I could kind of get going. And then eventually it started I stuck at it long enough and kept going, didn't quit, and eventually kind of turned the corner and started making some huge gains. Yeah.
And that's kind of like, so a lot of people will ask is like, man, dude, you know, I got kids, I got a wife, and I've been doing this car thing for a long time. And they're like, you know, but how do I get on that level? And I tell them all the time, I said, you got to remember something. There was, you know, 13 to 15 years, there was no car life.
Right.
It was not.
It was work.
It was all it was.
Yes. For me, it was like probably the first 10 where it was work.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, it was like, oh, what are your hours? It's like when I sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like all the time. It was, and to the detriment for a long period of time, and I still struggle with it at times, like my health and my fitness and eating bad, and because you get this tunnel vision where it's like you're so focused on that. Yeah. because you know that if you do that the right way, eventually it pays off.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at in life now, is that all that energy I put in, those 10,000 plus hours, got me to mastery, to where now it's like, okay, now I can go out and be a little bit more strategic about investment, or my time and my money can make more money for me. And now I can go, you know what? Yes, I'm going to go buy that car, or you know what? My 1 year goal is this, or I'm going to go do that. And it does take that leverage and that time, the compound effect of all those things piling up before you get to that spot.
Yeah, man. I mean, literally, and that's the phenomenal part about it. No matter what industry you're in, business is the same if you're going to end up making it. Like, you got it. What you put into it is what you're going to get out.
Yep.
And you don't know when it's going to hit. You're just going to try things. You're going to fail. You're going to just and you're going to rinse and repeat. You're just going to do it over and over and over, and you're going to think you're going insane.
And here's the other thing, and I think you and I both do this a lot, because I know you have a lot of people that reach out to you and say and ask you for advice because they see your success, and I have it too, especially in real estate. And I think for me, it's like I now feel an obligation to help other people 100%. Because of those people that helped me, right? Like, because certainly no one does this alone. Like, I've had so many people help me along the way, so many mentors that are in real estate or in other businesses that I've learned from. And now it's like, you know, and it's surprising because sometimes, you know, people will be like, oh, I don't want to ask him something, or he's not going to answer me, or, you know, and you'd be surprised at how often people have gotten to places in their business, they've gotten to the top, and how likely they are to help you, because they know that, like, the people that ask the questions are the new generation. That's going to be the next wave, and they want to have influence on that because someone did that for them.
That's so. When Instagram first started taking off, I mean, this was like my main focus, and everybody can testify. If you've sent me a DM, I've responded. It may take me some time.
And I even remember, like, so when I saw you at Armature, we reconnected. So, like, that's kind of more of the present thing. Is so this is, what was that? Maybe a year and a half ago? Because it was right out about a year ago, because John Cena.
John Cena. Yeah.
So we were pulling into the Armature lot. I'm driving my Supra.
You were like pulling here.
And I was going the other direction. I was like, come on in. You know? And like, I didn't know it was you. I just knew, like, that's a badass Supra. You know, it's like, I like it. I want to watch it. I want to park next to him. So come on in, you know. So you pulled in, and I remember, it's funny because when you, at the back of the Armature Works Rides by the River parking lot, it's got this really weird incline that you have to take it at such a weird angle, because, like, in a Supra without a lift, like, you're scraping like a mother, right? Like, so you have to take it like, so I'm just like, I'm going to watch him.
And
I see the angle he takes here. You know?
I think I remember, because I looked back and I was like, oh, it's a Supra. And then I saw orange, and I have never seen another orange Supra around here. So I'm pretty sure I was like,
I think that's
sure that's Andrew. I'm pretty sure that's Andrew. And so I look back and I remember.
And I didn't know you had a Supra. You did, but I remember you wanted. And so, like, you pulled in and we parked next to each other. I was like, oh my God, like, I know you. You know, like, and I didn't place it at first. I was like, man, I know you from somewhere.
So this is a funny part. So I end up telling him, hey, be careful, yada yada. Falls in, we back up, we park side by side, get out. He's like, oh man, badass Supra, da-da-da. And I'm like, yeah. And I never forget it. He's like, man, you're Full Circle Garage. And I'm like, yeah. It's like, but you know me before that.
And I didn't put it together.
Literally. So, guys, he stops and he's like, and I said, paradise? And you're like, oh my God.
And I remember it. Yeah, I remember it.
And then we like walked around.
And so what's crazy is he came out and he did like, so the, you know, my house, I own all the land around my house, right? And I was going to do this really cool like design with
massive
fountains and a big circle driveway and then a canopy and like this really cool like pergola, like all this really cool like outdoor entertainment stuff. And I remember you put together the images, and they're amazing. Like, I still have them on my phone. Like, I have literally, like, sometimes shared the images, but of course, not the whole thing. But I remember, like, the images you put together, and it immediately clicked, and I remembered. I was like, oh my God, like, I showed you. And you got a Supra. You know? It was like, it was kind of cool.
So, yeah, that was what I call, like, a full circle moment. And honestly, that's why I named my cousin was like, you know, as I was kind of acquiring cars, he's like, you need to make a car page. And he's like, what are you going to call it? And I'm like, dude, like, my life is like full circle.
Yeah, that's
like,
pretty cool.
All the hard work and everything, the tears, the pissed off, the think you're going insane, all the stuff had all like just, It felt like it did click overnight. You know
yeah.
what I mean? But you know, it was the other 15 years,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
where you're grinding for a dream that nobody understands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, I tell people all the time, your family's not going to understand, your friends, because this vision was given to you.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, it was just one of those things where, man, like, to this day, I have visions. You know, we talk about, you know, car meets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, I have a vision for Full Circle Garage, and that's what gets me excited.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Building ideas.
And it's interesting, and when you've been like, and I think when you've been an entrepreneur and you've been in business for so long, and then you have something that you're also really passionate about, like in cars, it's like you want to try and find a way to blend those things, right? And that's kind of some of the cool stuff you're working on. And for me, you know, obviously I spent a long time like not really sharing a lot of the car stuff. Like people didn't know what I had. And the last couple of years I've been a lot more out there with it. And what I found is it attracts more people like to either want to work for me or that want to, you know, as an agent or, you know, in one of my businesses, or they want to be a client because they share this common interest. And you just have this connection, right? And I think car people understand it too, and non-car people don't, because they're like, oh, it's a car. Yeah. It's like, I don't think you understand. Like, there's a certain, like, almost like a soul to a car where you get an attachment, and there's a certain pride that comes along with accomplishing that kind of goal. And so, like, you know, and I remember, you know, we share a similar background too around racing as kids. So up until third grade, I lived across the street from the Indy 500 racetrack. Yeah. So the Speedway, I lived in Speedway, Indiana, and my parents rented a house literally where you could see the entrance to the track. So I'd hear the Indy cars, and I'd see all, like, every time the track would come along for about a month, you'd see all these cool, like, and it was mostly American muscle cars, you know, because that's just the Indiana thing. But like, that's where cars started for me. And then from there, it was like, you know, oh, I want a Mustang someday, or I want a Corvette. And then as my success grew, those aspirations became, and of course, once Fast and Furious came out, and then it kind of glorified. Yeah. And the Supra for me was also like, my Supra is the very first kind of what I think cool car I had. And I mean, I had like daily drivers that were cool. Like I had an E60 M5. So I mean, I had some cool stuff, and I had my Lightning, but like the Supra was kind of a full circle moment for me, because in high school, you know, like I said, my parents didn't have money. They were very paycheck to paycheck. Fortunately, I got a college scholarship, so I didn't have to go into a lot of debt. But when I turned 16, but when another kid in my high school turned 16, his parents, who were wealthy in my small little town, bought him a brand new Supra. And it was literally out in the parking lot. This is before the movie, because the movie came a little bit after it. You know, had like the bow on it, and I remember like being super. I was jealous. Like I was jealous. I was like, I want that car, you know. And so what's interesting is like when the movie came out, and it kind of, you know, really kind of, you know, glorified like. And I think exposed America to the Japanese car culture. 100%. Because up until those movies, it was almost like...
It was honestly Gran Turismo, Initial D, animes, and stuff like that.
It's funny, I've got the Initial D poster back in the garage in the corner. And so like, so you have like this, it was almost like in America, it was almost like a antagonistic view of foreign sports cars. It was like this American versus foreign, and it was this almost like butting heads. And I think
old schools know this.
The movie kind of merged it and made it like cool for somebody that's got a Dodge Charger to hang out with the guy that's driving a Toyota Supra instead of them being like the enemy, right? And so for me, that movie definitely kind of opened my eyes to like different types of cars, and then eventually it led to me having a Supra, GTR, R34 wagon, you know, all the JDM stuff that I've had. So.
That's a good point you made. Like in the beginning, there was, you know, if you're, 35 plus years old, you know, like there was like this serious, like almost like turf war between domestic and import. Right. It was like I remember going to meets
where it was like,
it was segregated. You better not come over.
Right. So, and it's funny. Like my dad was a factory worker for General Motors, and if you drove something other than that car to the parking lot, to get keyed. Yeah. Like you couldn't drive a Toyota into his parking lot. Like you'd get it keyed. You know, like it was even like you couldn't drive a Ford into a GM. Like it was even that strict when I was a young kid. And then I think that movie kind of blended it to where then it became cool to have both, to celebrate both, to be friends, and obviously now like I have a little bit
Yeah,
of everything.
look,
You know, I've got like German and Italian and British, and you know, I've got like the whole rainbow color of flags. You know, with my cars.
That's for my recent purchase.
Yeah, your NASCAR.
Everybody's like, how? And I'm like, because you don't know my whole story.
You know what I said when you got the NASCAR? I said, you know what? The quote that he needs. I wake up in the morning and I piss excellence.
Dude, I need to make that shirt.
That was my favorite. So the quote wall I have over here has I have quotes on my. They're all car quotes, car movie quotes, and that's on there. I wake up in the morning. I piss excellence.
That would be a hell of a shirt.
Yeah,
full circle. I wake up in the morning
and I
piss
piss excellence.
Dude,
I saw the NASCAR and I was like, yeah, that's it right there.
So yeah, and I think that was the biggest thing. Like. I think especially for us older ones, and now I really do believe that the newer generation, like, we love cars.
Yeah.
And we appreciate all kind of cars.
Yeah.
Minus EVs, I'm going to say it. Minus EVs. I don't appreciate them.
I don't have EVs either. I'm the same. Okay. Yeah. You won't see me rocking an EV. Not my thing. Like it's just not, like, I think Elon's brilliant. I love Elon. I love his ideas, but I just don't. I'm invested in numerous companies of his, but I'm not an EV driver.
Yeah.
It just no soul.
Doesn't matter.
I want to hear it. I want to smell it.
Yes.
I want. You know what? I want it to sometimes leak oil.
Yeah.
I want to have to
feel
fix
real.
stuff.
I want to put my hands on it.
I want to me, like, I think driving a car is an experience, and I don't want it to drive me. I want to drive it.
Exactly. I mean, that's a hard time for me. It's just. I love manuals. Yeah. Like, I'm obsessed about manuals. Yeah. I want to control it. I want to hear it scream.
And I think the other part of the electric car is just like the complete elimination of the user experience. Yeah. Like I want to experience it. I want to be able to make a mistake. My RS6, for example, has like all these amazing safety features. I turned all that shit off. I'm not going to have you stop me from changing lanes if I feel like not using a turn signal, you know? Like, it's all off. Like, I don't want it to be told, like, if I'm getting too close to someone, like, that's, like...
It's my judgment.
Yeah.
Take my right away.
Yeah, exactly. So I turned it all off. It's like, I don't want this stuff. Like, I want to, like, overreact. I want to feel that.
I want my heart to beat a little fast.
You got to sometimes feel that. So... But so and it's funny because you brought up the idea not long ago of doing like the car show stuff, like changing the car culture up, because I think that it's one thing that I do love about Tampa compared to like other places I've lived and other places I've even looked at living, is I do think we do have like a really healthy car culture, but I also think there's ways to like take it to another level, right? Like I when I compare it, like, because I've gone to stuff down in like South Florida, for example. I've gone to Supercar Saturdays, and I've gone to some of the shows, and it's much less like here. I feel like it's very it's really friendly. Like I feel like you go to shows and everyone's cool and everyone's hanging out. I feel like in some other areas you go and it's like people are trying to do like shutdowns and they're trying to flex and they're trying this and they're trying that. Here I feel like for the most part, like I can't remember very many experiences like where really crazy stuff's happening. So
I've had a lot of
and you meet great people.
Positive.
Yeah, you meet great people.
Man, I'll eventually actually have this guy on the podcast, but this guy was at a car meet, and this is when I had the Evo. I pulled up, me and him kind of talked or whatever, and then the next time he saw me, I had the GTR and I pulled up, and he was like, "Oh man, what? You sold your Evo? Like, how could you?" I'm like, no,
I got another one.
I'm like, no, I didn't sell it.
I have a bad addiction. I don't trade anything in. And I'm the same way. It's like, everyone's like, "Oh, are you going to get rid of that one?" No, I'm going to keep it. But you're getting another car? Where's it going to fit? I was like, I'll figure it out.
I'm building a bigger garage now.
At least one of them at any given time is in the shop. So it's like, I'm good. Like, literally, this is, like, I was telling Vo when he got here, it's like, this is my last spot. Like, I'm going to have to, like, pull stuff in at angles and, like, it's like, of course, my Lightning truck, I love my Lightning truck. I've always loved those trucks. There's just something kind of special about them. They're just different. They're loud. They're obnoxious. They're fast. They're cool.
But they're
they're always broken.
Yeah. Oh, really?
That truck
Is that
is,
going on? Really?
that truck, I mean, it is, I think it spends half the year in the shop. Every one of my friends is always like, when are you going to get rid of that truck? I was like, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
I was like,
the paint.
it's sunk money. I've spent
Keeps
so
me
much.
humble.
I've spent so much money fixing that thing now that I'm never going to get rid of it.
Yeah. You're so invested
It's
in it.
always broken. So so fortunately I got room for one or two more. So.
Yeah, that's probably how I feel about the Mazda RS-7. Like, it's just literally there's something always going wrong.
Yeah.
And it spent so much time on the lift. I went to one of those meets, and like the morning before, I stayed at like 2 a.m. in the garage working to get this car together.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, "You have other cars, just take it." I'm like, "No." Like, I poured these last few days, I'm driving this freaking car to this meet. Like, it's going to happen. So, I totally get it, man.
And I think the other thing too about a lot of car guys, like people like, and this is something I think is different too. I think real car guys like working on cars.
Yeah. Oh,
I spend like 60, 70 hours a week sometimes in my business, and I'm not like the best mechanic, but there's a lot of stuff on my cars I do myself. Like I change my oil, I plugged a tire the other week, like the blower bracket for my truck cracked, and I replaced it myself. I actually like that. For me, it's like really peaceful. It's mindless. I get to do stuff on a weekend. Like my McLaren, for example, I need new accumulators. The accumulators basically last about 2 years. And then it basically, the ride quality just, in the lift doesn't work when the accumulators go bad, and like I'm going to do it myself. It's like it's not hard. It's you got to take. It takes time, right?
Yeah.
It's like taking every wheel off and the undercovers, and so like I actually like doing that stuff. Now there's times when I'm busy and I need something done and I have to take it somewhere, but some of it I definitely do like doing myself, and I like the challenge of figuring it out.
Yeah.
You know, like figuring out something that I'm not great at, but I can figure it out and do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
So.
I'm the complete same way. I mean, and the great thing about the car community is that if you don't know,
Someone can, or they'll come help.
They'll literally. I've had guys who be like, "I'm on my way," and I'm like, "Well, it's late at night." You know, no, I'm on my way. And I'm like, and that's like the car community, seeing how helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, random individuals.
Yep.
Was just blown away. And so, then it was like, it encouraged me, like, man, okay. Because you know how you get wrapped up in business and stuff, and you're like, I don't have time, But making the time when you get that phone call, hey, I'm on my way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I told my wife, it was like, oh my God, it was like midnight. And a buddy of mine's GTR broke down. And he hits me up, like, I'm in bed, man.
Right.
And I'm just like, yeah, man, dude, I'm on my freaking way.
Yeah.
And I load my trailer because
the thing is, like at some point it's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
At some point you're going to need the same thing. You know what I mean? It's like you're stuck somewhere and like.
And my wife that's what it was. My wife was like, it's midnight. What? And I'm like, Jessica, you don't understand.
Yeah.
You do this in the car community.
Yeah.
Because something's going to
You're gonna
happen
need
to
it.
you.
Yep.
And you can make a phone call.
And
it's
then
like a
get
buddy
something
called
done.
me today. I was supposed to go to a meet. He called me today. He's like, I need you to drive my car back home. Don't ask no questions. I'm like, okay, I'm on my way.
Don't ask no questions.
So, man, it's just, dude, there's such, and that's what I really want to showcase, with having full circle events and stuff like that, is showcase the beauty. Because, especially with takeovers and all this stuff, there's a lot of negativity.
There's a lot of negative car culture stuff.
People think
and you
that
want to
we're
have like more of a positive, inspirational type thing. And it's funny. It's like that's kind of like because I told you guys at some point I would be willing to do like some stuff here. Tons of parking, air conditioned garage. Like we could easily host like a bunch of people here, like even like a pre-meet or a post-meet or something. And I just think there's so much opportunity. I will say this much though, I definitely know where your NASCAR needs to go.
Where?
You gotta get hooked up with Cletus, baby.
Oh,
you gotta get the NASCAR down to the Freedom Factory.
Oh man,
I'm telling you, I'm telling you, Garrett, if you've got that's a no-brainer collab right there.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
So
that would be amazing. The bald eagle, baby.
Oh, dude, man. Here's so we've talked about we want to do tons of content with this car, and I want to talk about it so people know that like I'm not a poser. I'm not doing this for clout. I'm from there. I grew around there. I go back home. I get with NASCAR drivers. We get the families together. I've been in the NASCAR world since
Right.
I was legitimately a kid.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when it was Jimmy Johnson, he ended up winning a race, and I texted Rick Hendrick. Literally, he just went. I said, "Congratulations, man."
Yeah.
Respond right away.
Yeah,
Thank
awesome.
you, man. Thank you. He's at the race. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And
I think what people don't understand is like, you know, when you're a kid and you have these like aspirations of cars. I mean, what's one of the first things you aspire? It's like being a race car driver.
100%.
So it's like, and obviously like we kind of live out that fantasy with some of our kind of street cars that you know can go really fast but aren't real race cars, right? It's like, I mean, I have a whole wall in my garage with Hot Wheels because when I was a kid, it was like. I you know, like this, the car stuff started for me as a kid. Where it was like you wanted, the Hot Wheels and the race cars and the NASCAR, and you know, my older brother was a huge NASCAR fan, a big Rusty Wallace guy. Like he, you know, so like I was around IndyCar and NASCAR and all that as a kid too, and you know, so it's like, look, if you've worked your ass off to get to a point in life, like. Why not buy a NASCAR?
Dude,
I mean, look, you're living out of a childhood dream. Like, how cool is that? Like, to be able to have like a NASCAR you could drive on the street. I think it's cool. I don't, and again, like for me, I also think it's just part of like the connection to motorsports.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, Bo came over and we were just hanging out. And it's just wild seeing it in a garage, especially with a bunch of JDMs.
Yeah, you've got like an RX-7, a Supra, GTR, and
it's like,
a NASCAR.
Is this real life right now?
I could totally see you down at the Freedom Factory. There's got to be some sort of collab there,
man.
like because he does all the race, does all that kind of stuff, right? Like he's doing all that kind of stuff. So.
I didn't know he had a Dale Earnhardt NASCAR truck.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
And then
do it like Dell, baby. Do it like Dell.
Yeah.
And so he actually, so it's interesting is he lived in South Tampa he went to UT.
Really? Oh yeah.
Like he lived in South Tampa. You would see him out at Chick-fil-A and like, and obviously like I'm good friends with Victor from Induction Performance Brand, but he's a client and I've been a repeat client of his. He fixes every time I break shit. Yeah. Anytime I break it and it's past my pay grade, it's like, all right, Victor, can you help me out? And so obviously I've got a chance to meet him and stuff, and I just think it would be really cool. Like I think that'd be a super cool collab to get the NASCAR down there, I think there could be some really cool like stuff for charity. Yeah. I think. You know, you can make a shirt around it. You guys could collaborate with something there to raise some money. Obviously he does incredible with merchandise. So I think there's, again.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the plan.
If you're watching,
right. I'm gonna definitely take it on an oval track.
Yeah,
I'm not looking to go out there and win or something. I just think the car's cool as hell.
Yeah, it's fun.
And freaking,
why not?
It is living out a childhood dream.
Of course.
You know what I mean? And
it's awesome.
So
it's interesting. Like. As I, in my career in business, as I've kind of, climbed the charts with my company, I get to go around and I meet people that like are successful on even higher levels. So I've met people that make my collection look like, like I'm a peasant, right? And so I've gone to, I've been in the garages of like a couple of pretty famous people. I've been in Jay Leno's garage.
Oh, wow.
I did a tour at his. And then another one, and I'm not going to say his name because he doesn't want his name out there, but I have a client who I've sold property for. And he has a warehouse in Pinellas County, and it's in a not great part of Pinellas County. Like it's in Pinellas Park, right? So it's like out in the middle of, and not that Pinellas Park is bad. I'm not hating, but this is a part of Pinellas Park that's very industrial, not where you'd expect a many $million car collection. And so I go to meet him and he's like, hey, come to meet me at my warehouse. And so I'm going to his warehouse and I'm just thinking it's like his business. Yeah. And I get to his warehouse and it is a warehouse full of 60 cars. And I'm telling you, it is, we're talking like, he doesn't take them out either. Like there's some local people that bring out their $2 and $3 million cars. He's got them, and you don't know that he's got them. Like he is literally like a collector. He has a full-time mechanic on staff that's always doing the oil changes. And he takes some of them out, but there's a bunch of them he doesn't drive. He's got like Richard Petty actual driven cars. He's got Indy cars. Like he had the Indy 500 AJ Foyt winning car. Like he bought it in an auction. It was like millions of dollars. This guy's got an incredible collection in Tampa Bay, and no one knows about it. And the funny thing is the garage, it's all like overgrown. He intentionally makes the outside of the warehouse look completely disheveled because he doesn't want to have attention. And I asked him one time, I said, hey, how much does the insurance cost on this? He goes, I don't have insurance on anything. I'm self-insured. It's like, that's a whole other level right there.
Wow.
Yeah. He has no insurance on anything. He's self-insured.
Wow.
So in other words, like the bankroll that he has to have,
yeah.
it's like, that is an entirely different level of success. Wow. And so, and again, just, you wouldn't know it. Like dresses like you wouldn't, like you'd never guess that he has what he has, owns multiple companies, very successful. And his collection is insane, and it's not on social media. He doesn't even have an Instagram. So like it is wild what this guy has. And I'm telling you, like screen used movie cars, like authentic race cars from winning races, all kinds of exotics. Like there's a Senna, there's a like, and literally he doesn't go to meets. No one knows who this guy is, and he's just completely flying under the radar. And his warehouse is in the middle of like an industrial part of Pinellas Park, and I
feel like I know who.
And it's got grass growing up and stuff around it.
We'll have to talk off camera.
Yeah, because he doesn't like his name out there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Because I ended up doing some work outside of, this was probably the closest, I mean, and everything you're listing.
Yeah,
this
maybe that guy. All right, maybe. I know he doesn't like it out there. Like, literally, he didn't even want pictures taken. Like he was that like, wow. And it's funny when I'll have people come over here sometimes. I'm like, can I take pictures? Like, yeah, it's all over. Go for it. You know, like, and in fact, when I have people come to work on the house, and if they're going to go in the garage, I just start it with like, look, we're just going to go ahead and get this out of the way. We're just going to get this out of the way right now. Dude. You're going to go in the garage, and your jaw's probably going to drop. So just go ahead and get the pictures out of the way. Dude. Let's go ahead and take the pictures. I'll show you a couple things, and then please fix my air conditioner.
So that's the one thing I'll have to say with building a car collection and having someone who's sought after cars is that, especially if I'm going to have somebody come over and give me estimates. Like, my wife is like, did you close the garage?
I know. So, and I mean, and living on Bayshore, I get the Bayshore tax anyway. So it's like, you know, I've had people come out and quote, and it's like, and now fortunately I have enough trusted people that like usually if I'm bringing someone over, I know the owner of the company, and like I know I'm going to get like a straight shot, but I've had other situations happen where it's like they come over and they're like, oh, you need a whole new AC system. And it's like,
man, wait a minute.
It's like 3 years old. It's under warranty. This house is like not old. Like, I don't know how I could need a whole new AC. So I have had a couple of contractors like try that, It's like, I am not stupid, like,
and contractors
just because I have money doesn't mean I'm willing to blow it like an idiot,
I hate when contractors do that, man. I hate it. Like I tell people, I never forget, man. I had this one contractor. He pulled up. He was headed to a job. We were talking or whatever. He pulled up to this house, and he was like, "Oh my God!" He's like, "Oh, I'm about to tax the hell out of them." And he was a younger guy, in the same industry. And I said, "That is the most stupidest thing." I literally I'm like, "It's so dumb." He's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Man, they got money." I'm like, "I can pull up to a trailer. I can pull up to a mansion. My time and my value is what it is." Like, it does not fluctuate on what they got, what they don't got, and all that stuff. And he was just like, man, I never thought about it. I was like, yeah, it's actually pretty shitty of you, dude. Yeah. And it like completely changed his whole perspective. And he was like, dang, I was like, yeah, man, just have the balls understand.
And not only that, but like somebody in that position is, again, a great opportunity to refer you to other people, to give you more business, to, if you try and gouge them, there's times where maybe they'll be like, you know what, I really don't want to have the hassle of calling somebody else and going through that. So I'll probably just go ahead and pay this guy what he's asking, but he'll never get another piece of business again. Yeah. And I'm never going to refer him to anyone. But if he charges me fair, does a great job, then I'm going to refer him to everybody and their brother.
Exactly.
So it's a very short-sighted way to look at it.
Yeah.
Because again, if somebody has money, they didn't get to that point in life by understanding the value of it, right? So, especially like self-made people. Like, of course, there are plenty of people that are not self-made that were born wealthy, and that's a completely different scenario. But if somebody's self-made, like they understand it because they had to use that money to make money to get them to a certain point in life, Dude,
and that's the thing. Like, especially if I'm hiring to get something done, like when I build my garage and stuff. And it's like, I had a quote that I felt was too cheap. I was like, it seems too good to be true.
Right. Because then you're like, how is this going to work?
Like I know numbers.
Right, that doesn't make any sense.
He ain't charging enough. And then I had one, I was like, okay, right. You know what I mean? But then there was a guy in the middle, and I'm like, perfect.
Exactly, right? Like, and we have it happen too, like in my real estate business, we'll we'll have a client that'll need a roof replaced.
Yeah.
And we have a roofer that we like, that we recommend highly, that's very reasonable, not the cheapest, not the most expensive, but does a great job. And like, that's who we recommend. But clients sometimes want to get their own, you know, they may think that, you know, oh, well, let me get my own this or my own that. And, you know, we had one not long ago where we literally had a client get quoted $9,000 by one roof contractor and $25,000 by another. And it was like, okay, like, look, we're talking shingles and wood. This is not like an enormous house. This was not like a tile or a metal roof. This was not like some mansion. This was like a really basic, regular size house that there's no way. It was like $9,000, $12,000, and $25,000. It's like
what's this?
How is this happening? Like, where is it? Are his shingles like gold plated? Like, are they rare? Does he have serially numbered? You know,
Right.
Those are M-spec newer shingles.
Right.
I mean, what is 20? How is this working? So you'll have people do that, and it's just so short-sighted.
Yeah. I have to say, man, like anytime they come over to my garage, like I often, if you know my wife's friends or something, like I keep the garage door closed, and that's why I'm out of room now, and that's another reason why I'm adding the section in front of it to close that off, because I don't want you to over the gate and be like, why is there a NASCAR?
And then they're like, he's a professional race car driver. This guy's a professional race car driver. This driveway is going to cost $800,000.
Yeah, dude, for real.
It's Dell Earnhardt here, you know?
I know, man.
No, and it's funny because, like, similarly, like, you know, especially with the garage stuff and cars, and it's because it's like you have to be cautious.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt you have to be cautious.
Yeah.
I love sharing it, and I think the people that are respectful and like think it's cool, and like I have neighbors whose kids will like, you know, will want to come over sometimes, you know, and I'm like, yeah, come on in, you know, and you know, and again, it's just, I think when you inspire people, when they see it and you realize it can move the needle, kind of like what you told me I did, you know, like that's a cool thing. It's like that's why I think it's important to not be afraid to like show off, you know, and it's not. I don't want to say show off because I don't think it's that. I think it's more
story.
Like, that's it.
You're just telling your story.
Exactly.
And the ones, here's how I figure. The ones that take it the right way, those are people you want to work with.
Exactly.
The ones that's going to be like, you know, F that dude, you know, blah, blah, blah. Right. I don't want that type of person around me anyway.
Right. That's a victim mentality.
That's exactly
what it is.
To be around people. I want everybody doing better than me.
I want everybody to win.
Exactly.
Like, there's enough out there for everybody. I mean, in my industry, real estate, it's funny because it's super competitive, and it's you know, a lot of times it's very catty, right? Yeah. It's like, you know, you get, you know, if you're doing business and then this person doesn't like you because you're, you know, it's like, it's really weird. And it's like, man, there's enough out there for everybody. Yeah, dude. Like, I want everybody to win. Like, the only person I compete with every day is myself.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
It's like I wake up every day and try and be better than I was yesterday. And it's like, or better than I was a year ago or 5 years ago. And I think people that like get so caught up in like, other people, they're failing.
Yeah,
it's like, worry about you. Yeah. Like, when you're paying attention to what someone else is doing, you're not paying attention to what you're doing.
I mean, that's one of the things I say, even, you know, I'm not going to get into politics, but like, focus on what you can control. Yeah. You know what I mean? Do what you can, focus on what you can control. Yeah. That's, a lot of people are worried about everybody else.
Yeah, and it's funny, I saw somebody post this, it was an image the other day, and it was like a circle that said, you know, things, you know, focus on what you can control, things I can control, and then all the things I can't. And the things you could were like, okay, if you master those things, you're gonna do great.
Yeah, that's
like, but when you let all these other things that you can't do anything about, you know, get in the way, then you're gonna get caught up in the wrong things. You're gonna fail. You're gonna be miserable. Yeah. You know, your life's gonna be a wreck. You're not gonna accomplish what you want, and you know, and unfortunately, there's too many people that do get caught up.
And misery loves company.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Miserable people want you to be miserable.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a shame, man. People that are doing well,
you know what,
they want everybody to do well. They're like, you got to
brings me to a good point, too, because I think there's no doubt you've experienced this. Like, when you start, like, making, like, progress in your life, like with your business, your health, your family, whatever it is, there's people that are in your life that are there for a season. Yeah. They're there for that part, but aren't necessarily going to be with you on the rest of the journey 100%. Because they don't progress, they don't evolve, or they hold you back, or they don't support your vision or your goals. And I think sometimes I think people sometimes, try and misunderstand that for like disloyalty, and it's not that. It's you're giving them a choice. It's not like you're saying, hey, look, I'm not going to have, I'm not going to help you anymore. It's you've got to go along with this. There's work that you have to do too to kind of go along with this. And if you don't do that work, then like I'm going to like grow. And if you don't grow, then what do we have in common? And then we're going to have problems, and there's people that like, as you go along that journey, and I'm sure like, your 17-year journey in your business, people that are in your life at the very first part of that, some of them aren't there anymore.
A good
There's
bit.
a lot that are.
A good bit.
There's a lot that are, but there's a lot that they wanted to go party, or they wanted to go do this, or they wanted to go do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like they don't have that choice, but it's like you're going to go down a different path than them. And the things that they want in their life are not the things that you want. And being too involved with them will bleed some of that stuff that you don't want in your life into it.
100%. Couldn't have said it any better. And I have a lot, I say a few because they end up finding me on social media and stuff, and they're like, a lot of them are like, oh my God, he did it.
Yeah.
Like he actually freaking did it.
It's funny. It's funny. Like my musical interests are like completely like all over the place.
Same.
I listen to everything from like, Morgan Wallen, Sam Hunt country to J. Cole, to Drake. And J. Cole has a song where he says, basically he says, I didn't know you were going to be rich. And he said, you should ask me. And it was kind of like, because I have people that I grew up with in high school that you just kind of grow apart from, right? You're not in touch with them. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they find you and they're like, hey, And now it's like, they're like, hey, can I come? And you haven't heard from them in 20 years. It's like, and it's tough because it's like, it's not like you don't want to help people because you do, but there's a certain point where like, you have to decide like, is that person from my past part of my future?
Exactly.
And sometimes they can be, and then sometimes they're not it, So.
And that's I like what you just said. That I haven't heard that. I gotta get that.
Yeah, I gotta remember what song it is, but it's basically like, he's basically talking about a woman that he met when he was younger, and she said, "Oh, J. Cole, I wish you'd have told me." And he's like, "You should have asked."
Yeah. Because I know you can testify that no matter where you go in life, you already know. You know what I mean? Like I knew where my life was going.
Yeah.
I've said this, and anybody that's followed me on social media for the past 15 years, I've always said my life was written in the stars. I know where I'm going. I know where I'm going with social media. I know where I'm going.
I would agree to a point, but I'll say this much. Like, did I know I was going to be successful? Yes, because I knew I had the work ethic. Did I know I was going to get to this? I think there's times where I just pinch myself. Right? Did I really think I was going to live in this house? Did I really think I was going to have these accomplishments? Did I really think I was going to make this amount of money? Did I know I was going to be successful? Yes. To the extent, there's a part of me that's like, I still do pinch myself. Like, I'll walk down and be like, I'm going to drive a Ferrari today. It's like, and so there's still a part of me that's still humbled by that, where I can walk down and be like, this is really cool. I can still be like a kid, because that's what we are, man. Dudes,
that's all it is.
Dudes, we're still like, I'm 40, I'm about to be 46, and I basically am still a kid in a lot of ways. We are. Like our toys, 100%. They just get more expensive. It's just, it is it.
Yeah, I'm definitely a kid. My wife can attest. So she says I got 3 kids, not 2.
Oh yeah, and I'm always making like the little kid, like I still have like a kid sense of humor, and like, it's just, we grow older, but it doesn't mean that we necessarily lose the little kid in this. And I think if you lose the little kid in you, then you're unhappy. Like you got to keep a little bit of the kid inside you.
I told my wife early on when we first got married, I'm like, you're not going to get like this very traditional guy, white picket fence, and we're going to take our holiday photos and look perfect 24/7. We're going to be a mess. We're going to embrace it. I am who I am. I'm going to say a lot of things and do a lot of things right, and I'm going to do a lot of things wrong, and it's just part of life, and I'm going to grow, and I'm going to pursue, and all these things. And I take pride on being genuine, authentic, and just being who I am. You know what I mean? And
same.
I was a class clown in high school. I'm still a class clown, but there's also
especially on Instagram.
Right.
Because man, I watch some of your stuff sometimes. I'm just like, I can't do that. Like, this is one of his posts I'm not gonna like. I'm not liking this one. I'm not commenting on this one, but I'm gonna laugh, and I'll send it to friends. I'll be like, I'm like, we have a bunch of friends in common that I didn't even know. Like, guys that you do jujitsu with,
Yeah,
or in real estate that I know, and then so it's like I end up finding like when I've shared stuff, it's like, oh, I know Jared, and so, but it's funny. There's times when you do stuff, I'm just like, oh, that's edgy. I'm gonna stare. I'm not even liking that one, but it's funny, and I'll share it with friends. But you definitely push the envelope there for sure. It's funny, and I push the envelope with some of my marketing and my business sometimes, but there's also times when I've where I pulled back the reins. I'm like, no, I would say I probably had at least a dozen billboard ideas through the years, and I'm like, I know this would go viral. Yeah. I know it would go crazy. Yeah. I know it would work really well, but I don't want the backlash. I don't want the heat from this, so I'm not going to do this one. During COVID, during COVID, I had a hilarious billboard, and I didn't run it, and I'm glad I didn't. But it was basically like, my ex and I on a billboard, and we had masks on that says "Sick of your neighbor, get your home sold," which it was like, which I thought would have been hilarious, but the backlash would have been atrociously bad, right? Like even me just saying this on this podcast, I'll probably have a backlash from it. But was it funny? Could it have been funny? Oh, yes, it would have been epic, but it also would have been pretty insensitive, and a lot of people, it would have caused all kinds of problems I didn't want.
Exactly.
But yeah, and I've had some pretty crazy ones where it's like I can approve this, and it's like man. And I'll struggle with it, and I'm like, no, not worth it. Dude. So Jared, however, Jared doesn't have that filter. Jared looks at it, he's like he'll basically be like, is this worth it? Not worth it? Oh, I'm doing this. There's no filter there. It's like the most edgy thing possible to piss off as many people as possible. Let me attack the OnlyFans girls. Let me go after. Let me. Approve. I'm like holding myself back, and Jared's just like,
yeah. So it's funny, man. Like my cousin, we're all having this conversation, and as much as this is the crazy part, as much as people think, like I'm unfiltered, I'm blah blah blah, I'm so filtered.
Oh,
like
wow.
That's
me,
the
filter.
That's me filtered.
That's the filtered
And my
version.
cousin's like, I've been running with this dude for 20 plus years. You have no idea.
Yeah, that's funny.
Like, this is the best version you've seen.
That's the filtered version. Goodness. Because there's times when you put out a reel, and I'm just like, oh, ow.
Well,
it's funny. Well, and I told you, it's like I'm buddies with Joel Patrick, right? Yeah. So Joel's on Instagram, and he's very, very edgy. Joel is on a whole other plane. He's in my board of advisors group. And he definitely is unafraid to just go there. And I'm just like, I couldn't do that. He's like, yes, you could. I was like, no, I couldn't.
Dude,
no.
Honestly, it's true. You're in a way different situation than me.
Yeah.
I can get away with this. Yes. You know what I mean? To a degree. I'm still going to have to be filtered.
Yeah, of
because, I was banned for 2 months on IG. So
yeah, you did.
That's another thing people don't know is I was actually banned for 2 months. And a lot of people are like, oh, man, he's not going to be able to get that traction back. He's not going to be able to get
that.
But you did. Yeah. I actually came back stronger than ever, and the numbers just continue to grow.
Well, and it's pretty cool because it's like, and it's wild because it's just you being yourself, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Being yourself,
people
showing your cars and your collection and car culture,
talking,
and finding ways to inspire people, and I think now kind of like I told you, I mean I'm certainly not nearly as active on Instagram. Like my business page is pretty active. My personal page, I think I sometimes I get antisocial sometimes. I'm like I just don't feel like posting anything. But the interesting thing is you can weave that into, especially hobbies and things you really enjoy into your business. It can dramatically positively impact your business because now I work with other people that are into cars and exotic car owners, and we just, I just helped a guy relocate from up north. He's opening a car dealership in Sarasota, and we helped him find the building, and he's going to get a house, and that all came from him knowing I'm in real estate and then seeing the car stuff, So there is a way that you can do it, and then spin off into other things. So I think that's one of the things, from a future standpoint, you're talking about, which is full circle car events and car shows and merchandise and all that, which I think is pretty cool.
The whole 9 yards. And my biggest passion, people can say martial arts, that's a huge passion of mine. Cars is a very huge passion of mine. But my biggest passion is just motivating people to be absolute monsters.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's what I love the most. been freaking, like, you ask anybody, like, I'll take hours to talk to somebody, to push them. Anybody that's ever went to the DMs, like, I don't even text them. I send them voice messages, and they're like, bro, I just got chills. And I'm like, because, man, where you've been, I've been there. I know the type of mindset it takes to get to this level and to get to other levels. And I want to share that because, like you said, you're going to have mentors. To this day, I have mentors.
Yeah, I have a bunch.
I'll never forget a mentor of mine. His name's Victor. And it's so funny. I was at a car meet today, and he's like, I didn't know you know Victor. I know him because I met him doing jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
You know, and somebody at the car meet was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, man, that's how I met him. And Victor's a good mentor of mine, and we have like monthly, like once a month business meetings, and we all get together, him, Blake, and Frank, and they're older guys, and just learn from, you know what I mean?
They have wisdom.
Exactly. And I never forget, me and him were talking about social media, and he said, man, I've known you for years, and I know you're such a go-getter, like everything, he's trained martial art. He knows, I am I'm in it, 100%, And he says, you really genuinely actually care about people, and this is probably to fault. I care more about their success than they care.
I know, and sometimes it's tough because I do too, and I've had to
hard.
learn to separate myself from that because you can't want it more than them. You can't. And I think the other thing is that I've learned is you can inspire and motivate people, but you don't necessarily have control over it. Exactly. In other words, you can set an example and you can do things that'll help them, but you're not necessarily going to be able to have as much control because they have to be willing to buy in and they've got to take the action. And I've met people where it's I've wanted them, they had every single amount of potential there, but they didn't want to do it. They just didn't have it. They didn't have the fire in the belly, and you can't change that, right? You can be the inspiration and you can be motivational and you can do all those things, but you can't really have control over their willpower.
It comes down to their discipline and them being able to stick with it. And that's probably, I tell people all the time, and they ask me, and I said, I'm gonna be honest with you. The chances you're gonna accomplish anything you're telling me are slim to none.
Yeah.
And so I'm just gonna be truthful with you. You have to be a killer. You gotta wake up every morning excited. I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning. I said, even me and some buddies, they all own businesses, and we're texting at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, the life looks great. So you got to wake up 4 a.m. and get estimates and designs done. You know what I mean?
And it's funny. I remember, when I first got into real estate, I remember, telling when I was going to different real estate offices to where I was going to start. They asked me, hey, what's your goals? I want to be the number one agent in Tampa. And so many of them were basically shitting on it. Oh, no, that's way too big of a goal, and you need to lower your goals. And the place that I went was the place where the leader actually said, well, we want to help you get there. And it's and then I got there, right? And so, and now it's when people say that to me, it's I certainly want to encourage it. But there's also times where I have to coach them and say hey, look, you can get there, but you got to do these things first. Trust me, I know what it's going to take. It took me. You're not going to skip the process. I think you're not. I think I hit number one as a real estate agent in Tampa in terms of sales volume. I think the first year I hit it was probably I'm going to guess probably somewhere around 13, 14. And so that was 9 years into my real estate career. It did, you're not going to, if you're coming into real estate right now and your goal is to get to number one, hey, look, you can get there. I can help you. Okay. But what you have to understand is you can't skip the process. You just can't skip the process. You're not going to get to number one in a year. I'm not saying it can't be done. But the commitment that you would have to make, the steps that you'd have to take, the money you'd have to have, you've got to learn how to market, you've got to learn how to sell, you've got to learn how to get a transaction. There's so much you've got to learn that you've got to follow a process, right? And you can't just get to that place. Can you get to, this number by year 3 and then this, you've got to think so long term. And people think so short term. There's I want to be number one by next year and I just got in. It's and they're I want a Ferrari by next year. It's even if that were to happen, you would probably not. You probably wouldn't appreciate it. It's you got to go through the grind. You wouldn't
appreciate it. And what people don't understand is once you go through the process,
it shouldn't be easy. It shouldn't be easy.
It's
supposed to be hard.
It's supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
Life is supposed to be hard to separate the winners and the losers. That's what it is, man. The people that put in the effort, the people that had the vision, the people that sacrifice all that stuff. And you know, my thing is you don't, and this is where I really started to learn, you know, years ago, like what's meant for you is meant for you.
Yeah.
Nobody's taking it away
Yeah.
from you.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I had to lean upon, because I would, like, you know, I was in the industry and I look at other people, I'm like, man, how are they growing so much faster and like all these things? And you got to understand, but then, you know, later on, you know, they're bankrupt, they're divorced, they're all this, and all this,
everything
like,
falls apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I look at it and I'm like, man, God was like, yo, you got to build a whole foundation, because when I put you on,
and not only
not
that,
just
but like
get it, you got to keep it.
Yeah. That's it. Well, and that's the other thing I looked at not long ago is, like, especially with like real estate sales in Tampa, we have these lists. Real Trends puts these rankings out every year, and I looked and it's like, man, I've been on this list since like 2011. Right? I mean, it's like no one else. I'm like looking. It's like, is there anyone else who's been on here for 14 years? And it's like not very many, right? Like they're either in for a few years and they fall out or they collapse or whatever. And so like the longevity of it is really what is probably the biggest key. It's like even when you look at professional athletes and sports, it's like you can have a guy that wins a championship or does well, but it's like when you have the guys that have done like the Tom Brady, like the 20 years, that's GOAT stat. Like that, when you've got longevity, like that's the truest level. Like you can have great years and you can be number one for a year or two, and like you're a flash in the pan, and of course a lot of people will remember you, but if like you want to really be remembered, it's the longevity that matters more than anything else.
100%. But I will say this, I don't know how long we've been talking. 1 hour?
Right
oh, okay. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Literally just made it.
Oh,
That was awesome.
40 seconds.
Sweet.
that's
Doing
good.
great.
So I feel like we could probably talk for like 2 more hours.
Probably.
And you guys
for
might
sure.
get bored. But I will say this, man. First of all, I know we've been talking about this forever.
Yeah.
You know, doing this, and I'm finally happy. Like,
Yeah.
we got, and I hope it was valuable.
Hopefully it was
to
valuable,
everybody,
yeah.
Yes, you know.
Yeah.
But I know everybody's probably waiting on this.
Gotta see the garage.
You gotta see the garage.
I know, that's what we're here for. I mean, it's full circle garage. It's like doing like the garage.
Where's the
tour,
car?
You gotta do the garage.
All right, I know what I need to do to get them, but now show them.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So let's take a look at the garage. If you want to follow Andrew Duncan,
Andrew Duncan is my personal Instagram, or The Duncan Duo is the business. The Duncan Duo is pretty much on every social channel for my business, but my personal Instagram is The Andrew Duncan.
Good. So check it out. You'll see more of the car. You'll see his business, his life, and how he built, you know, this amazing life for himself. And came from nothing. That's a beautiful story about it. You know, not everybody. I know a lot of people see guys in exotics, and you think it's all daddy's money. And I've had people say trust fund. Tell me I'm a trust fund.
My mom was a waitress. My mom was a waitress, man. Like I still pay. I'm paying my mom's bills today. Like my mom lives with me, you know. So yeah, but I'd love to show the garage off, because obviously I know you've got a lot of car fanatics just like us. So I think there's some pretty cool stuff in the garage that kind of, not just the cars themselves, but some of the little items and the meaning behind some of them, which is pretty cool.
Man. So let's get to it, guys.